crazy. We were just up in the mountains up there, socked in the fog, and we just drove 5 minutes down the mountain and we're at a secluded beach. Good morning from outside Vlore, Albania. We left the UNESCO World Heritage Site of Butrint this morning. We slept in a 300-year-old culturally protected home last night, got up to an amazing breakfast cooked by the guest house owners, and made a few hours drive down to the coast.
Vlore would be the first of 3 beach days on our 2-week guided Albanian tour, meaning our first view of this gorgeous and diverse coastline would be at a picture-perfect monastery and less than perfect weather conditions.
Super windy! When I say this monastery has an incredible view, it dates back to the 5th century, although some of the buildings are from the 12th century. It is actually on a little island with a boardwalk out to a beautiful perch that overlooks the coast. It's in a little cove and would have been amazing for a drone, but it is so windy, we're trying not to get blown off the boardwalk. You're not walking in a straight line, Darren.
While the wind pushed us quickly back to the car, it did not rush our first taste of coastal Albania's very fresh cuisine.
I did, and I liked it.
After a delicious lunch full of seafood, we checked into our hotel here on the beach, took a little bit of a nap because that's what beaches are for, and have decided to take a walk around. Today is really, really windy, like the sand is blowing everywhere. But even with the weather, I don't think we're here in peak season. Most of the shops and hotels look pretty shut down. Our guide Nick was actually telling us that there was a communist compound down around the corner that a lot of officers would bring their families to go to the beach during summer holidays. And once communism fell and democracy came here, they decided to move the beach down. And so all of these hotels and restaurants are newer, and they actually moved the sand from the communist beach down to this area as well. It's really beautiful here. I mean, the mountains are right behind the hotels, and it goes into crystal clear blue water. During the summer when it's 90 degrees outside, I imagine it's a really nice place to hang out.
Later that evening, we'd make a short drive away from the beach to find more of the region's history at a higher elevation.
We made a 20-minute drive up 1,200 feet to Kanine Castle. Our guide tells us this fortress dates back to the 3rd century BC, so it's got quite a history. Actually, if you look far off in the mountains from here, you can see the Butrint Castle, so you can tell that there was a network of castles across Albania at one time. But we're up here walking around 6:30, 7 o'clock at night, and we have the castle all to ourselves. It's got an amazing view of Vlore and the coast down below. You can see the islands, you can see the whole cove. One thing to note, earlier today we were out in Vlore and we were walking around and we really saw no one. Like, there's all these hotels, all of these restaurants, and they were all closed. It is Ramadan right now, which is something we didn't take into consideration. So I guess people aren't eating during the day and they're spending a lot of time praying or not being at the beach. And so after sunset, which is when you do eat for the day, the city kind of came alive. Those more visited areas of the town, it looked quite busy tonight, and I can only imagine what it looks like when it's July or August and the water is actually comfortable to get into.
The next morning would put us on the road to Himare and take us across dramatic scenery changes full of surprises.
Good morning from LLOGARA, Albania. We left Vlore and the beach this morning and drove about an hour up into the mountains. We're headed down the coast south, and we made a quick stop up here in the mountains to meet some local residents. So, I'm not really sure. I believe this is a resort for people who would like to camp here during the summer, but they have some resident deer who are quite happy to see us. Good morning!
Yeah, so for like $1 or so, you can
grab a bag of corn, and it's quite amusing.
They are super friendly and super hungry. Hello, I've got snacks. Oh my god. Okay. We don't have super great weather. There's rain moving in today. And do I have a deer that's in the shot with me? Hello. I don't really know what all our guide has in store for us. We may make some changes because of the rainy and cooler weather. It's quite cold up here in the mountains today. The beach wasn't too bad, but we'll have to see what it's like when we get down south a little bit further. It's crazy. We were just up in the mountains up there, socked in the fog, couldn't see anything, although we were told there are incredible sea views up there. And we just drove 5 minutes down the mountain, and we're at a secluded beach that's being developed with crystal clear blue water. It's also like 5 degrees Celsius warmer.
We continued down the striking coast, passing just through Himare to visit a bay that's home to a once secretive military base and a historic fortress with a contested history.
We are in Porto, Palermo. It's a pretty strategic location that was used throughout the ages here in Albania. Pretty interesting, pretty beautiful.
One historical account says that the fortress was likely built by the Venetians in the 1600s, but the other tale is much more dramatic.
So the Pasha, or ruler who built this castle about 200 years ago, wanted to keep a lot of it secret. The French engineers that he hired to build this place, he supposedly killed them after the castle was finished. You can tell it's a confusing and dark mess, and it has a prison, so it would be a scary place to be.
Either way, it's well worth it to explore the fort's dark passages.
Whoa, it's a big room.
Yeah.
It's a big jail.
And incredible views over the water.
After checking out the castle at Porto Palermo, we came back to Himare, had a delicious seafood lunch. After checking into our hotel, Geo and Art, and taking a quick nap, we are getting ready to go explore the beach here at the village.
Himare has all the small beach town charm and a picturesque cove, which was a nice contrast to Vlore's larger feel.
The seas are a little rough and pretty cold, although there are a few people here that are swimming. Our guide said they were from Germany. They're some tough folks because that water is frigid.
Our plan for the evening here was to keep things laid back and find a perfect sunset spot before locating some more fresh seafood to eat. But not before one interesting turn.
Nisur të përshtasin shërbimet.
Turistët tërhiqen. Hello, why you choose to come in Albania?
As a side note, we did make the national news here in Albania tonight. That was a surprise to us. We were walking along the seawall with our guide. He was getting ready to go fishing, and we were going to hang out with him for a bit. And the national news agency, Top News, grabbed us and asked if we would be part of a story based on tourism. So if you can search the internet carefully enough, you may be able to find Stephanie being interviewed on Albanian television.
So we started researching about Albania. We saw that it had beaches and it had mountains, and those are two things that we love. Not sure what was said about us, but we said we liked Albania, so there's that.
Today was another pretty lazy day, pretty similar to yesterday, just a different town. Had some time to walk along the beach, just kind of soak in the sun, relax, kind of get rested up from the fast pace of the first week of this trip.
We were talking to some of the locals who said that the weather has been cooler and wetter than normal, so tourism has been a little slow here this year, but it should ramp up as it gets hotter this summer. And you can tell it would be a really nice spot in the summer. It's a little less crowded here, and the water is really, really pretty in the coves. from beautiful BORSH, Albania. We left the town of Himare this morning, had a gorgeous breakfast with a beautiful view of the ocean, and now we have driven about 15 minutes south to BORSH. Our next stop is Saranda, which I believe is a beach resort town, but our guide Nick always has a few surprises for us. When we left Himare this morning, he said we were going to have a quick coffee stop at someplace cool. When we got to this restaurant, there was some water outside, but when you actually enter the restaurant, you get to see that it is built around a waterfall. He said it was going to be a little surprise, but it's a pretty big waterfall that is surrounding the restaurant.
Nick says this tree is 300 or 400 years old. That's old.
After another hour or so drive south, we passed through Saranda and drove a little bit further to Butrint. This is the most visited cultural site in Albania, and you can kind of tell from the number of tour buses outside that it is kind of popular, but it's still a lot less crowded than a lot of other countries we've been to. This site dates back thousands of years and was maybe founded by the people who were fleeing Troy. Every empire wanted to leave its touch, so you had the Greeks, the Romans, the Byzantines, the Ottomans, and the Venetians all leaving their style on this site. We didn't know this when we first entered, but this is another UNESCO World Heritage Site, and they're still excavating it here today.
Saranda has long been a popular spot, evidenced by the scale of historical sites like Butrint. It's located just across the water from Corfu, Greece, another busy tourist destination.
I'm standing on Albania, and that island over there is Corfu, Greece.
But Saranda is now getting a wave of day visitors from cruise ships that bring thousands of new people to this once closed-off country.
Saranda is one of the most popular beach towns, beach areas in Albania. The cruise ships have found it. They have a pretty nice tourist infrastructure. Our guide said that the local Albanians actually don't tend to make it down here until July or August just because it's far from the capital in Tirana. But with the cruise ships coming this way starting in May, it tends to get a little busy. It kind of feels like a cruise port, some hawkers around the port asking us to buy things and that kind of thing that we haven't experienced elsewhere, and more people around the beach than we've seen anywhere else. Nice place, a little touristy. Worth a stop.
Saranda also serves as a great base for day trips out to historical sites, secluded beaches, and expansive views over the bay and nearby Corfu, including one high spot topped with a castle.
Whenever I'm off to find a sunset, a flavor of a memory, whenever all the stars above are shining, then I know I'll never be alone.
After taking in the beach for a couple hours and resting for a little bit, we drove about 15 minutes or so up a long windy road up a mountain to a castle with a very pretty perch. It is Lekuresi Castle, and it dates back to the 16th century, and it overlooks the harbor of Saranda and some of the mountains in the interior.
We've had some beautiful views up here, got to watch the cruise ships leave port, take in the sunset. You can actually have dinner up here. There's a restaurant here, but I think we're going to head back down to the city for dinner. Nick's got something in mind, and so we will take his lead. We changed our minds. We're eating here and listening to music. So, yeah.
We are back at our giant hotel room after another delicious and giant dinner here in Albania. We were going to leave the castle and come back down to Saranda to find some dinner, but our guide happened to run into another guide who told him there was going to be some traditional music and dancing and that we needed to stay and eat at the castle. So we did, and we got to experience some music and watch some dancing.
Again, we really enjoyed the sunset and just hanging out up above the city today.
Just some things to note about Saranda. Saranda has had a lot more people than some of the other beach towns that we've been to, and I think a lot of that has to deal with it already being very popular with Albanians and I think some other European countries. There were also 2 cruise ships here in town today, so they brought thousands of people on shore. But the water is still crystal clear, beautiful, and I'm sure during the middle of summer there's plenty to do here. Tomorrow we don't know really what's in store. We know we're going to Gjirokastër, which I believe is another UNESCO World Heritage Site. So like Butrint today, we're going to another tomorrow.
I think that's it. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and click the bell to be the first to see when we post something new. Thanks for watching. Good night from Saranda. We will see you tomorrow on the road to Gjirokastër.
Good night.
We can look back someday.